Story 1. Every few weeks, I experience a night or two with 3 to 4 hours of sleep. It's exhausting. I feel tired all day but struggle to sleep. I push through, and usually my work performance doesn't suffer too much. However, I occasionally lose my train of thought and fumble for words or zone out. It's genuinely frustrating. Story 2. You feel as if you are out of touch with humanity and are just existing, not forgetting the endless headache. But now I am back to 6 to 7 hours of sleep, so I am good. Story 3. It feels like you've had no sleep at all. It almost feels like someone hit a pause button and resumed where you were 4 hours ago. Tired. Story 4. Lots of anxiety. You plan your day around it, yet you somehow don't get any sleep. I would take the train or bus for 2 hours after work just to go home, eat dinner quickly, go to sleep, and lie in bed anxiously. I would wake up before the alarm goes off again to shower and get ready to catch the bus again at 5 a.m. After years of this routine, I'm honestly happy I'm out, but I feel my sleep schedule will always be disrupted. Story 5. I used to need only 3 to 4 hours of sleep to function, but as I've grown older, my sleep requirements have increased and I now need at least 6 to 7 hours. It was great to be able to function on so little sleep, as I could read much more. Needing to actually sleep now is frustrating. Story 6. Aging can be challenging. You may find that you age more quickly, gain weight more easily, and become ill more frequently. I work in the oil field where the hours are long. There is barely time to eat, shower, and sleep after a shift, especially when working 14 to 16 hours a day for 2 to 4 weeks straight. At 33 years old, I have more gray hair than many men in their mid-40s. Story 7. Not too bad. Coffee in the morning, and if I do not eat during the day, I do not get sleepy. I am a personal trainer, so I have early and late clients. I could not get more sleep even if I wanted to. Story 8. Biting lead balls wrapped in aluminum foil while someone sticks needles in your eyes and boils your sensitive area with soda. All while being strapped to an inverted table that swings back and forth with children screaming in the next room. Story 9. I don't know when I was more irritable, when I slept so little, when I was drinking heavily, or when I had little sleep while drinking heavily. Hope that helps. Story 10. It is much harder as you get older. In my 20s, I could teach a full day, do extracurricular or volunteer work in the evening, get my 3 hours, note, never continuous, and be honestly perky the next day. I have had trouble sleeping since a turn in my life, and now I am 64 years old with serious health issues. Doctors have tried everything to help me sleep, barring anything seriously damaging, with no luck in the past 8 years. I have given up trying, just accepting sleep when it comes. And what a joke. I married a man who can fall asleep sitting up, regardless of lots of noise. It has driven me crazy for 35 years. Ah, love is grand. Story 11. Which part? Do you want to know what it feels like to not be able to fall asleep for hours? Or to wake up feeling like a pile of garbage? Do you want to know what it feels like to wake up after 4 hours of sleep and then take on an emergency room shift? Story 12. The older you get, the harder it is to function with little sleep. It brings aches, pains, irritability, and a lack of concentration. Story 13. This used to be me. It's not much fun. There's a strange sense that you feel like you aren't missing out on much in life because you are awake most of the time. However, in reality, you are missing out on life because you are doing everything while feeling exhausted, so you aren't fully present. It's like constantly being on autopilot. You are functioning, but you aren't fully experiencing life because your brain filters out so much extraneous detail just to keep going. It's bizarre. Story 14. Honestly, it is frustrating. I feel like a zombie most of the day, and my brain just doesn't function properly. It's hard to focus. I am constantly tired, and my mood swings are unpredictable. Coffee helps a little, but it is not a genuine solution. I try to catch up on sleep when I can, but it is challenging. This is definitely not something I would recommend if you can avoid it. Story 15. I feel good. I can't sleep for 4 hours straight. I sleep for a maximum of 4 hours and then wake up, then sleep again. I love it that way because I dream a lot when I exceed 4 hours of sleep. Story 16. That was me until 35. Then my body needed 8 to 9 hours of sleep. It was such a strange switch. I had completed an entire day by the time my boyfriend woke up at 11. Story 17. I experience moments of feeling really tired, then suddenly awake with energy. I am accustomed to this. I often feel like I have wasted time by sleeping longer, but I do feel better when I get adequate rest. Story 18. That's amazing. I started sleeping 9 hours a night last year, and I can't go back. I feel so great. With the hour-long nap during the day sometimes, it feels incredible. Story 19. Constant headache. Can't focus very well. Always tired except for that little rush of energy that seems to occur between 10:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. You are much more susceptible to depression. Story 20. Apparently, it's normal. My friend and I need about 4 to 5 hours of sleep. I had to research this and consult a doctor because it's been my entire life. The most surprising part is that only about 1% to 4% of the population experiences this. It's deep rapid eye movement sleep when we are completely shut down. It's not due to stress, caffeine, or overexertion. It's just normal. What's it like? Pretty amazing. I can stay up later and wake up early to enjoy the day. The downside is that I've adjusted, but my partner sleeps in, so breakfast is usually done a few hours before she wakes up. I have to make mine separately so hers doesn't get cold. I am more productive throughout the day. Story 21. It is not enjoyable. The medication I take has caused me insomnia, and getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep is quite poor overall. I do not recommend it. Story 22. I experienced this for a couple of months, having trouble distinguishing between the imaginary and the real. I would hear voices and have intrusive thoughts that did not seem to come from me. Story 23. It is challenging to deal with insomnia. I know people who have it much worse than I do. During periods when I get only 4 hours of sleep a night, I can function, but it is difficult to concentrate. I experience a persistent headache throughout the day, and I feel slow both physically and mentally. 2 days ago, I had a particularly bad night without sleep, and I ended up wearing 2 different shoes, for example. Story 24. After having kids, I got used to very little sleep. It's like being less intelligent all the time, but you can't tell that you are less intelligent. Story 25. I quit drinking and started using cannabis. Ever since, I have had insomnia. It's not so bad. Waking up is difficult, but I have much more time during the day. Usually by the weekend, I have accumulated enough debt that I can sleep in to recover. Story 26. I have insomnia that keeps me from sleeping for 2 to 5 days, though I am getting better and it is not always this way anymore. The air around the streets looks strange. It is hard to explain, and it likely makes no sense to most people when I do so this way, but it feels like existing in the middle air. You are underwater but not. You are there but not. There is poetry there, but mostly there is disconnected abstract horror. Story 27. 2 to 4 hours, 3 nights a week, with a cold glass of pre-workout in the morning. 4 to 5 hours, 2 nights a week. 10 to 12 hours on the weekend. They say you cannot catch up on sleep, but I feel great, even if I might pay for it later. The pre-workout may also have consequences at some point. Story 28. I have a problem. When my sleep cycle gets disrupted, I can't sleep consistently. I sleep in chunks of 3 to 4 hours while feeling tired. I become frustrated all day and may break down over the smallest issues. I can't seem to control my emotions. Tears fall down my face over minor inconveniences, and I laugh uncontrollably at trivial things. The headaches and poor digestion keep me irritated, and concentrating on anything feels nearly impossible. My skin quality degrades, and I seem to get ill quite easily. Story 29. It is very unhealthy in the long term. Do not damage your health. Focus on getting enough quality sleep every day and take care of yourself. Nothing is worth losing your health for. Story 30. This week, I have been struggling with a bad cold, laryngitis, and a persistent cough. I would love to be able to sleep for a solid 3 to 4 hours. Story 31. I developed hives from sleeping too much at night because I made time for video games. My allergist advised me to take my sleep more seriously, so I have been working on going to bed earlier. Story 32. I will put it to you this way. Once I fell asleep while standing up, waiting to cross the street at a busy intersection. Story 33. It's not that bad. I have days when I go to sleep around 5 a.m. and wake up around 2 p.m., but it could be worse. Story 34. Chest feels heavy but hollow. I feel dull. Sometimes the back of the head pulsates. Feeling groggy. Food and drink do not taste as good. Story 35. It feels terrible. This is my sleep schedule every night. I feel exhausted all the time and can barely function. When I drink coffee, it feels like someone is trying to jumpstart a car battery, but it doesn't work. I do not recommend making this a habit. Story 36. I do not do it anymore, but it involves consuming large amounts of caffeine and nicotine, taking short naps, and then not getting out of bed on my day off. Story 37. It depends on what the day is like after getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep. Sometimes it works out better than it would have if I had slept longer, and sometimes the day would have gone much better if I had gotten more sleep. There was a time many years ago when circumstances were more consistent in my life, and things in general were going well for me. At that time, I was unable to get more than 3 hours of sleep per day. Nowadays, I generally feel the same level of fatigue regardless of whether I get 3 to 4 or 6 to 9 hours of sleep. Story 38. When I used to abuse Adderall, I would sometimes go for days without sleep. It was horrible. Sleep is the most important thing for your mind, body, and soul. Story 39. I have experienced this unintentionally for about 8 months now. All I can say is that I can get easily irritated sometimes, even by the way someone walks or breathes. Otherwise, everything feels kind of slow, hours feel like days. Story 40. I don't sleep well and try to take short naps throughout the day, usually 5 to 10 minutes at my desk. However, sleeping for 8 hours often leaves me feeling groggy all day, making me want to return to bed. About 6 hours of solid sleep seems to be the ideal amount for me, as I wake up feeling good afterward. Story 41. I tend to fall asleep or nod off while sitting down. Fortunately, my brain maintains awareness while driving. I have been trying to address this issue before it becomes a problem. Story 42. It is usually manageable, but if I do not catch up, I often have a challenging day. I experience a short temper, low motivation, and a feeling like I have a fever. Story 43. I will start with some background. I work a fast-paced job as a credit trader on the sell side at a major investment bank. I have been getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep since high school. Before my career, I was a serious soccer player. I played for the youth national team, an academy in England, and then in Division I of the NCAA. Throughout my entire soccer career, I lived on less than 4 hours of sleep per night. Nowadays, I go to sleep at 2 or 3 a.m. and get up at 5:45 a.m. to be at my desk by 7 a.m. I log into Bloomberg on the way in and remain at full throttle from the time I begin my commute until about 5 p.m. when I finalize my trades. I manage my book, review my profit and loss statements, and commute home, arriving around 6:45 p.m. Throughout the day, I never feel tired or foggy. Simply put, I dislike sleeping because it feels like a waste of my life. I am not sure how I can perform without much sleep, but all I can say is that I don't feel the need for it. I often stay up reading all night, dreading going to sleep. I fast until dinner, and sometimes I skip that meal as well. I work out daily and have plenty of hobbies. I spend a few hours of one-on-one time with my kids. Then I sit in my theater to read or watch movies all night. I feel like I experience more in one day than others do in a week. Maybe I will only live until 60, but I won't have regrets when I eventually face whatever illness results from lack of sleep. I genuinely enjoy staying up all night and would not change that, regardless of what happens or what anyone tells me. I do not consume alcohol or take any drugs. I avoid carbohydrates, processed foods, and fruit. I barely have caffeine, and I only drink coffee or espresso for the taste, usually opting for decaf. I still play soccer in a competitive league and feel that my health is good. Story 44. I'm thankful for my flexible work schedule from home because sometimes I need to make up for lost time, which can take up most of my day. It's not by choice. I am on medication that can intensify insomnia, and some nights I barely sleep. Story 45. I don't know. It doesn't bother me that much. For whatever reason, I wake up and jump out of bed. I can only sleep for so long. I drink an energy drink in the afternoon, and I usually feel fine. It only really affects me if I sit down to do something like watch a movie. I will never make it through a movie. Story 46. I often feel better with sufficient sleep. When I was 15 during the summer, I survived on about 2 hours a night for the entire season. Since starting my job at 16, I have not been able to endure such a lack of sleep for long, as my body is more fatigued. However, on the occasional night of 3 to 4 hours of sleep, I usually feel great the next day, although it often catches up to me by the following evening now that I'm 41. If I'm not working, I typically doze on the sofa. I am in the process of receiving a diagnosis for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which I believe contributes significantly to the disruption of my sleep at 15. I felt fantastic with so little sleep back then. Story 47. Honestly, I have been doing this long enough that it seems normal now. I definitely catch up on sleep during the weekends. I usually go to bed around 2 a.m. and get up at 6 or 6:30 a.m. I still seem to function normally. I often wonder how much better I might feel if I could sleep regular hours. With 3 kids, a wife, a dog, and cats, my work life is busy. I work from home but travel semi-regularly. Part of why I stay up late is to have some me time. Another reason is a bit psychological due to a past break-in situation. After that, I started to stay up much later than before, which was already late. I know some people can manage this with no negative impact, but the general consensus is that it is rare, so it would be highly unlikely to assume I am among them. I feel like I would be better off if I slept more, but I don't notice the negatives too much. Story 48. The days are becoming harder. I can't think, I look terrible, and eventually, I get so tired that parts of my body start to feel numb, but I'm not actually falling asleep. Story 49. My sleep schedule depends on my actual schedule. Right now I'm studying for finals, so I feel quite energized despite my lack of sleep. However, mid-semester, like in February, can be challenging. Story 50. A lot of the time I am on autopilot. However, I still function well, and my wife is always amazed. I often get a second wind. When I feel too tired, I try to catch up on sleep at night, especially before a day when I know I will be driving a lot for work. Driving while sleepy is worse than driving while intoxicated. I once took a nap in my car at the beach during a workday. I regret it the next morning, making empty promises about getting more sleep that night. According to my sleep tracker, I still get a decent amount of rapid eye movement and deep sleep each night, even compared to my rare nights of 6 to 7 hours. Story 51. I wake up refreshed and ready to go after 5 hours of sleep. On some nights, I only get 4 hours and feel the same. However, I wish I could use that free time for something productive. I usually get into bed at midnight and stay on my phone until 2. Story 52. Still awake here. It's 1:11 a.m. I will be up at 5 or 6. I will feel great after 2 cups of coffee. Catch up once a week. I will sleep 6 to 7 hours. I feel much better on less sleep. Story 53. I used to get 3 to 4 hours of sleep because it was considered cool. Being a teenager is strange, but I managed to wake up tired and felt fine for the rest of the day. Story 54. You really feel intoxicated or euphoric. Sometimes, you experience an unexpected burst of energy and joy. Story 55. I average 3 hours of sleep at night. I go to bed around 3 a.m. and get up around 6 a.m. I accomplish a lot from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., but then I crash and take an hour nap. After that, I'm groggy for an hour or 2 and don't get much done. By the time I get to work at 3 p.m., I'm in decent shape. However, after working in the kitchen, by the time I get off, I am wide awake and ready to stay up until 3 a.m. Story 56. I am one of those. While I get a bit more sleep, my sleep scores on my watch are usually pretty poor. I can function okay. However, I want to achieve much better sleep to enhance my athletic recovery. I am just beginning to change a few lifestyle habits and routines to improve my sleep. Story 57. I am constantly tired but cannot sleep due to chronic insomnia. I feel slow and experience more hallucinations than I would with sufficient sleep. I am more anxious and jumpy, but my reaction time is slow, and I feel terrible all the time. Caffeine pills are not enough. Story 58. You start to feel like a zombie. I have learned to take short naps when I can, even if it's just for 15 minutes. Story 59. I normally sleep for about 5 hours, then go to the gym for an hour in the morning. I'm fine. I have actually reduced my coffee consumption and am drinking more water. On weekends, I sleep for about 7 hours, but any more than that causes me to get a headache. Story 60. I generally work from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., 5 to 6 days a week. That's just the nature of blue-collar railroad work. I sleep around 3.5 to 5 hours, and as I have gotten older, it is rough. I am not the ride-or-die, all-nighter, resilient person I used to be, grinding out 60 to 90-hour work weeks with ease. The help of energy drinks like Rockstars or simple coffee is critical for survival most days. Story 61. Maintain what you think is all right, but you may notice subtle signs of brain fog and poor reaction times. Then you learn not to trust a nap. Story 62. Nah, it's great to deal with being tired. After nearly 20 hours of working straight on Unity, you'll get the best sleep ever. Story 63. I was one of those people who would sacrifice my sleep in exchange for more free time. So every weekday, I would sleep for 3 to 4 hours just to play games longer and maintain my sanity. On the weekends, I would sleep until around 2 p.m. It was honestly quite nice. The only downside was the need for constant caffeine during the weekdays to function. I used to dislike how vacations disrupted my sleep schedule, as I often lost my catch-up days due to getting up early for activities. Story 64. I begin to see things others cannot and understand the universe. Sometimes my childhood best friend appears in the passenger seat and talks to me on my way to work. Story 65. 1 in 4 million people have a rare genetic mutation that allows them to sustainably get 4 hours of sleep and function at full capacity. If you are not part of that 1 in 4 million, you may be harming your health over time. Story 66. I usually get about 9 hours of sleep each night. However, my wife is a Caribbean party enthusiast and serves in the military, so she typically gets only 3 to 4 hours of sleep per night. She often claims she is fine, stating that getting more sleep makes her more tired. She falls asleep quickly and easily. She is accustomed to partying all night and waking up early, continuing this cycle each day. Once, she had 2 weeks of training far from home, where they had to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. Yet, every night they would voluntarily stay up partying until 3 a.m. I would ask her, "Aren't you tired? Don't you want to get a full night's sleep?" They had free time after 5 p.m., so she could have rested as much as she wanted. Nevertheless, she would insist she wasn't tired and continue to party all night. If I get less than 7 hours of sleep, I feel groggy all day, while my wife only needs 2 hours and has all the energy in the world. Story 67. I am the type of person who thrives on 4 hours of sleep. If I ever get more than 5 to 6 hours, I feel unwell the next day. I wake up at 2:30 a.m. to exercise and complete tasks before my household wakes up. Then, when everyone is awake, I can put myself on the back burner and focus on their needs because I have already taken care of myself. Story 68. Working nights every other week means I have to go to sleep in the mid-afternoon. Sometimes it is so difficult to fall asleep that I only get 3 to 4 hours of sleep. I end up feeling exhausted, and on my days off, I try to recover. Story 69. Every day, I feel like I want to sleep. However, when it comes to actually sleeping, it takes me hours to fall asleep. When I do sleep, it feels like a complete blank. When I wake up, I don't feel refreshed. At the same time, I could easily go for 48 hours without sleep. I don't know, it's weird. Story 70. I enjoy caffeine, nicotine, and vitamin B. I have been better at keeping a schedule, and I feel happier that way. However, when I finish work, it feels like a timer counts down until I have to go back, making my free time and sleep feel less meaningful. I tend to choose free time over sleep, and doom scrolling does not help. Story 71. It is honestly a getting used to thing. At first, you feel like you had no sleep at all, and no matter how much coffee or energy drinks you consume, nothing helps. But you eventually adapt to it. First, don't do it. It is unhealthy. However, if you need to, my best tip for making it work is a cold shower in the morning. Start with a normal hot shower, and when you finish getting clean, turn the temperature to the coldest possible and shower for at least 20 to 30 seconds. That really kickstarts me like nothing else and helps me function in the morning. Story 72. It depends on who you ask. Tonight, my toddler slept for 4.5 hours and then woke me up, so I slept about 2.5 hours. We have both been awake for over 2 hours at this point. It is 4 a.m. She seems delighted and wants to play, read books, and watch animals on television. I would like to go back to sleep for a few more hours. So, I would say it's either super frustrating or totally fine. Story 73. Either you will feel nothing, or you will feel hyperactive as if you have just eaten a lot of chocolates, or you will feel high and depressed. This is honestly the worst case scenario. Story 74. Brain fog and fatigue. Until you experience what a well-rested sleep feels like, you might think that 3 to 4 hours is sufficient for your body, likely due to being accustomed to powering through the day. When you finally get a full night's sleep, along with a healthy diet and regular exercise, the difference is truly remarkable. Story 75. I have short sleep syndrome. 4 to 5 hours is normal for me. It is 3 a.m. now, and I have been awake since 9 a.m. I will not sleep until maybe 5 or 6. Story 76. Am I tired and forgot the meal I sent out that received a compliment? Or am I having a stroke and blacking out portions of my shift? Or is the waitress telling me the wrong meal? I don't know, but I'm still awake 5 hours later, and all I want to do is sleep. Yet I am completely and utterly awake. Story 77. I never feel fully awake or fully asleep. Luckily, this is only seasonal. Apparently, there are people who naturally sleep about 4 hours a night. I've heard this said about at least Donald Trump and Margaret Thatcher. I don't know if it's true. Story 78. Yes, everyone with an extremely rare genetic mutation that allows for functioning on 3 to 4 hours of sleep has gathered in the comments. Most people here think they are only sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night on average, but in reality, they are most likely sleeping much more. There is no way a normal person can consistently sleep 3 to 4 hours a night over a prolonged period without the use of stimulants. Story 79. I got that many hours of sleep for several months until it finally returned to an average of 6 hours. It all started when I first developed gastritis, which was difficult to endure. The brain fog became so severe that I struggled to function properly at work and had to take some time off. I felt indifferent about everything and didn't care if something good or bad happened. Story 80. It is challenging to always be awake when others are asleep. Feels too early or too late, and I often experience headaches. I sometimes get an energy boost at random times when I cannot do much since others are still asleep. However, when they wake up and want to do things, I find myself exhausted after being up for so long. Honestly, it can be quite lonely. I used to go to the gym at around 5 a.m. just to feel some sense of existence. Story 81. I was writing my album, and it was a struggle to go to sleep. It's something you can adapt to. I don't know how functional I was, but when I sleep too much, I usually have a week where I barely sleep at all. Story 82. I did it for 10 years, maybe more, like 4 to 5 hours, often 4. For most of that time, it was fine. They were great years. Life was good for me then, and my life was mostly easy. I didn't feel particularly lost or out of it. But the last year was difficult, and only then did I realize how much it was affecting me. My thoughts were a bit dulled. I was making poor decisions and getting angry easily. Story 83. I fished commercially in Alaska for 50 years. At one time, we would stay up for 2 days at a time. We lived on caffeine and adrenaline. Summer days were 20 hours long for 4 months straight. We stayed up throughout the night checking on the anchor or drifting. Now that I am retired, I don't sleep through the night. I am now living the dream in Hawaii, so it was worth it. Story 84. It's awful. Without medication, I can only get 2 to 3 hours of sleep at a time and a maximum of 4 hours per night. After about 5 days, I start getting migraines. Story 85. They were the worst times of my life. The lack of sleep only accelerated the downward spiral. On one level, you get used to feeling terrible all the time. On another, you begin to wish for some form of relief. Story 86. It's awful. I find it ironic that I couldn't sleep despite having only 4 hours of rest. On a serious note, I feel out of it the entire day. I can't focus at all, constantly trying to catch up with caffeine. Little things that wouldn't normally bother me suddenly become very bothersome. I tell my fiancé that if I'm sleeping, please just let me sleep. It's hard to get the hours I really need to function. Story 87. I'm going through a challenging divorce right now, which causes me to average about 4 hours of sleep a night due to stress and worry. It's dreadful. I can't concentrate and I feel like my brain is operating at 50%. I have a busy and stressful job, and I know I'm underperforming, which makes me anxious about potential consequences there. My memory, usually excellent, is now terrible. I've started carrying a notebook and using my phone to take notes throughout the day. While this helps, there are times I can't remember why I made certain notes, whether at work or in my personal life. My temper often feels like it's bubbling just beneath the surface. I genuinely feel like I could lash out at the next person who annoys me. I'm usually very calm and would be the last person to get angry, but now it feels like my inner turmoil is trying to escape. I've not lost my temper, and I don't plan to, but maintaining my composure feels more difficult than before. There are physical changes as well. Almost everything hurts, and my blood pressure has risen from normal to high in just a few weeks. My doctor has prescribed medication for that. Sometimes I feel hopeless and think about suicide. I am certain I will take my own life someday. I know how I would do it, though I'm not sure when. It might be weeks or months from now. Story 88. I can manage about 3 nights with less than 5 hours of sleep before my ability to function significantly declines. My mood suffers sooner than that, but overall it seems that other people require more sleep than I do. As long as I have gotten at least 7 hours of sleep once in the past 3 to 4 days, I feel pretty good and will wake up naturally after 4 to 5 hours. Story 89. You have energy to survive, but not enough to thrive. Weight gain, faster aging skin, increased appetite, lack of motivation to act, and a restless mind and body urging you to sleep even when you cannot. Story 90. Like driving very fast and suddenly braking every time you reach your car's maximum speed. Story 91. You feel like you're constantly having out-of-body experiences, altered states of consciousness, and fatigue, leading to false senses of reality. With this amount of sleep becoming your norm, your days tend to blend together, with occasional bursts of energy and severe crashes. It is not a pleasant experience. However, as an insomniac, it has become something you are used to. The effect this has on your overall mental health is extremely harsh. Mood swings, social battery constantly drained from fatigue, and other challenges contribute to the struggle. Story 92. The baby still needs food in the morning. You do it, but with reluctance and impatience. Things need to get done. Story 93. Horrible, frustrating, defeating, and depressing. I have suffered from insomnia for years. I wake up around 1 or 2 a.m. every night and just lie in bed waiting for morning, wishing I could sleep. I hate it. Once a week, I have a catch-up night where I sleep for about 7 hours. As for my energy level, it is incredible how well I can function. I am a working mother of 2 elementary-age children, so I have no choice but to power through. I am able to fully function throughout the day, but I am just extremely tired. Story 94. It's a lot like getting 5 hours but slightly less, or like when you get 2 hours but slightly more. Story 95. I have been getting about 4 hours of sleep on some days throughout the summer because I struggle with adult responsibilities and read too much manga at night on my iPad. Mornings are difficult for me when I wake up for work, and I usually sleep in on weekends. This lack of sleep has significantly hindered my recovery for the gym and has made me slower both mentally and physically. I would not recommend this. Story 96. I usually get 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and I try to squeeze in an hour-long nap after work. Typically, my Sundays are designated for sleeping in to catch up on rest. However, it can be exhausting during the week. I usually drink a bottle of water and open a Rockstar Zero when I wake up and get ready for work. I know energy drinks are not the healthiest choice, but I can't drink coffee. Story 97. It's very challenging and often resistant to treatment. I have found that pregabalin is the one thing that consistently helps me sleep, however. I try not to take it too often. Story 98. It's great. I've been doing it since 1995. I accomplish more in one day than most people do in a week. I highly recommend it. Story 99. Some days it's fine. I can get some work done while no one is awake, or clean the house, or just watch shows and movies that no one else is going to like. Some days are challenging. I got about 2 hours tonight and I don't feel like more is coming. Tomorrow will be difficult. Story 100. I have just completed a week of double shifts, averaging 3 to 4 hours of sleep each night. I am drained and have no idea what is going on. I wouldn't say I feel tired. It is something totally different. I keep zoning out and daydreaming. I would not recommend this experience. Story 101. I'm tired all the time and would love to take a nap, but I know that if I do, when bedtime comes, I will end up reading all night. This affects my physical health as well. Story 102. My absolute minimum is 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep. I cannot see myself functioning on less. I have great respect for parents who experience such low and constantly interrupted sleep. Story 103. To be honest, it's kind of normal, or maybe I am just perpetually tired and don't notice a difference. The only problem I see is that if I get about 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I wake up feeling half asleep for at least half an hour. In contrast, after 3 to 4 hours of sleep, I wake up almost immediately and feel somewhat ready to get things done, like getting ready for work. Story 104. It's exhausting and annoying. I am scrolling on Reddit because I woke up and can't sleep again, and I have work in 3 hours. Story 105. A few nights a week, I get about 4 hours of sleep. I love it because I wake up early and can be productive. It doesn't make me feel tired at all, and if I do feel tired, I'll take a 1-hour nap. Story 106. It's like a dream where you need to escape the house before it burns down, but you can't control any muscles in your body. You give up and try to fall asleep for an easy death. I often sleep 3 to 4 hours due to the specifics of my work, so I'm used to it, but some mornings are really rough. Story 107. I have always struggled with insomnia, but I managed fairly well until the last 2 years. I feel like a shell. I am somehow able to maintain full-time work, but I cannot drive and feel like my brain is not processing information. I get an hour or two of sleep when I first lie down and the same before my alarm goes off. Some nights I get nothing. Physically and mentally, I have no energy left, and I have had to let go of many commitments because there is only so much energy I have. Story 108. It's like never changing the oil in your car. It might still run for a good while, but it's not running well. Young people need 8 hours of sleep, adults need about 7 to 8 hours, and older adults can manage with a little less. No one is at their healthiest with fewer than 6 hours of sleep. Story 109. You know how it feels when you randomly get 3 to 4 hours of sleep? Just like that, but without the surprise. Story 110. I developed a twitch after a year of that. Thankfully, it was the only reason I didn't crash my car every day during the drive to work. Story 111. I cry a lot and feel like I'm losing myself. I have a baby who hasn't learned to sleep through the night yet, and we recently went through a difficult sleep regression where he woke every 45 minutes. One night, my brother called to check on me, and I couldn't even speak. I was so tired that I just cried and said I had to go. Feels like I'm floating through life, and not in a positive way. Story 112. After a while, it's like coming down from ecstasy while coming up on ketamine. I strongly do not recommend it. Story 113. After reading a few responses, I realized that most people suffer greatly from lack of sleep. Personally, I find that I only require about 4 hours in total. Any more than that, and I wake up groggy and disoriented. I seem to function best on just 4 hours. I have good focus, I'm healthy, active, and maintain strong relationships with friends and family. The only time I ever want or need more than 4 hours is after having poor sleep for 1 or 2 days in a row, or if I'm otherwise unwell. Story 114. Getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep is like running on empty, groggy, grumpy, and barely holding it together. Your brain struggles to think, your body begs for mercy, and eventually you crash harder than your phone battery. Story 115. I did this for 4 to 6 months due to work a few years ago. Most days I was in a haze. My short-term memory suffered because half my job involved scheduling. My wife finally made me stop when we would have full conversations. She would leave the room for a minute and come back, and I would start having the exact same conversation we just had. It has been 4 years since then, and I am still having memory issues, but not as severely. Story 116. A few years ago, I had a work project that was so hectic that I only got about 3 to 4 hours of sleep each night. I thought it was going to kill me, and I was tired all the time. I could feel my heart struggling. I have never been so happy to lose a client. Story 117. I have been doing shift work for 30 years. At this point, 3 to 4 hours at a time is all I can reasonably expect, and I don't even have a circadian rhythm anymore. To answer your question, imagine you're constantly feeling like you have had 2 beers. Not loopy, not incapacitated, just mildly buzzed. It is not as fun as it sounds, though. Story 118. In the beginning, I thought I must have a superpower to function after 4 to 5 hours of sleep. However, after a year, it became so difficult that I could not sit still for 2 hours without falling asleep. I went to the doctor and he prescribed melatonin. I just had my first 7 hours of sleep in over a year, and I feel great. So please see a doctor, you will feel much better. Story 119. It's honestly not as bad as everyone here states, at least for me. I've noticed that if I sleep 8 to 10 hours, I'm just as tired, if not more tired, than when I sleep 3 to 4 hours and have to be productive the same day. I don't recommend it, though. Story 120. Quite honestly, I can't complain. I'm young and still have energy. If I were 10 years older, I'd probably feel much worse. Story 121. Running on 3 to 4 hours of sleep feels like living in a dream where everything is blurry, your brain is on airplane mode, and caffeine becomes your love language. Story 122. Night shift affects my sleep. I only get a maximum of 4 hours a night now. I don't think it affects me, but I'm sure it does, unfortunately. Story 123. Your relationship with time changes. For me, everything seems to take longer. I can set multiple timers to do tasks but inevitably start lagging. Problem solving becomes more challenging, and when I begin to fall asleep, I often wake up from a hypnic jerk. Story 124. I spent 4 years in the military getting little sleep. The best I can say is that you get used to it. That said, my eyes felt like there was sand in them. I was physically exhausted to the point of chronic pain and brain fog, and I basically operated on autopilot for most tasks. We had a watch on the ship where I would stand midnight to 4 a.m., go to work all day and evening, then stand watch again from midnight to 4 a.m., get a few hours of sleep, and repeat the cycle. Those were challenging times. Story 125. It's not that bad. Around 3 p.m. you feel a dip in energy and would love a nap, but you push through to your second wind, and it's all good. The only annoying thing is lying in bed at night wide awake, hoping you'll catch that night's window for sleep, because if you miss it, your next chance is tomorrow night. Story 126. Hello, depression, my old friend. I've come to share my feelings with you again. I seem to have lost my self-esteem. I truly feel as though I have given up on life. Story 127. 4 hours is my absolute minimum to function normally. I'm tired but still okay. Typically, I get 5 to 6 hours of sleep and am fine. If I sleep more than 6 hours, I get severe headaches. Story 128. People talk as if parenting is a science experiment that must be approached with extreme caution. I would have appreciated 3 hours of sleep during the early months with our first child. Story 129. As someone who works overnight and gets about 4 to 5 hours of sleep, it's noticeably affecting me more each day. I feel myself slowing down increasingly until the weekend arrives, when I can sleep for a solid 10 hours. Story 130. I am 47, and it catches up with me about once a month. I will have to take a hibernation day to reset and sleep for over 12 hours. It is a nightmare I would not wish on anyone. Story 131. I had to do this for up to 10 days straight in the army. I felt like a zombie, my cognitive abilities declining, and I couldn't understand how the days went by. Story 132. It is awful. I regularly get less than 4 hours of sleep almost nightly. I would bet I haven't slept more than 6 consecutive hours in the last 2 years. I honestly feel like I am going insane because of it. Story 133. Waking up is challenging. The first 2 hours of the day, I feel pretty unproductive. After that, I enter a flow state where I perform really well for 4 to 6 hours. Following that, I revert to feeling lifeless for the remaining 8 to 10 hours. Story 134. I went a couple of years getting only 1 to 2 hours of sleep a night. I was exhausted and borderline delusional all the time. This is not recommended. Story 135. It's terrible. I experience mood swings and body aches, and I often feel like dozing off at the worst times. It wouldn't be so bad if I could take regular naps during the day, but working full-time and managing 3 kids involved in organized sports makes it tough. When I go on vacation, the part one look forward to the most is being able to take a midday nap. My wife actually plans for it and takes the kids out so I can have some quiet for a couple of hours. She's the greatest. However, once in a while, maybe once a month, I crash hard and sleep for 11 to 12 hours. But that doesn't help much. It takes me a long time to fully wake up, and I spend most of the next day feeling super groggy and with almost no appetite. Story 136. Not quite that bad. I get about 5 to 6 hours of sleep regularly. My partner could easily sleep for 9 to 10 hours if she could. However, I seem to operate better with fewer hours. Anything over 7 hours makes me feel groggy. I actually start to feel anxiety or fear of missing out if I sleep more than 6 hours. Am I missing out on anything? No, but it feels like I'm wasting valuable time. Story 137. Driving is a significant problem. I often fall asleep while talking to people. I lack the energy to engage in physical activity, which leads to gaining weight and even worse sleep. It's a positive feedback loop. Story 138. I work 24-hour shifts as a medic, and sometimes I only get 3 to 4 hours of sleep due to pre-shift anxiety. After my shift, I am exhausted for half a day. Story 139. Before I discovered my attention deficit/hyperactivity disorder, my sleep schedule was 3 to 4 hours a night, sometimes even less, just a nap or something similar. 6 hours felt like oversleeping to me. Surprisingly, I never felt tired, but I was quite depressed. Of course, there are other factors involved, but now that I'm treating my ADHD, I no longer act on my suicidal thoughts, and most days aren't so bad. I just want to drink and use drugs to cope. I think part of that improvement is because I can now sleep for more than 6 hours, and my brain isn't as exhausted. Story 140. Depression can be overwhelming. At times, it feels like I'm hallucinating or hearing things randomly. It's akin to experiencing paranoia. Your heart races, and your mind is filled with thoughts of panic, sadness, anger, and depression. While your physical body may be exhausted, this fatigue extends to your emotions and mental state. Sometimes, a single thought repeats incessantly in my mind, such as, "I'm tired." It can be challenging to maintain productivity without relying on substances like coffee or energy drinks. If you don't get adequate rest, it can feel as though everything is weighing you down. Sleep is essential. A good rest helps keep depression at bay. Story 141. I don't feel good. I'm often irritable, experiencing chest pain, and I worry that I might faint at any moment. Story 142. I have bipolar disorder, so it feels like I have more energy after those nights than neurotypical full nights of sleep. Story 143. My battery seems fully charged. I wake up on my own. I put in 8 hours of work and go to the gym. I crash when it's time for bed. Story 144. A mix between a hangover and low definition, as if your software hadn't loaded and you were just a collection of jumbled pixels. Story 145. You wake up feeling tired, and upon checking your watch or phone, it becomes harder to fall back asleep. Taking a nap feels like a hassle because you still have work to do, leading to irritability and sometimes an inability to comprehend what is happening. Sleep becomes a privilege for older adults like me. Story 146. I prefer 3 to 4 hours of sleep. I feel a little groggy, but if I sleep 6 hours, my back hurts because I don't move while sleeping. Story 147. When my wife's first cancer diagnosis occurred, I only slept about 4 hours for weeks. I was exhausted and stressed. Adrenaline kept me going until I started experiencing migraines with stroke-like symptoms, including numb hands, loss of vision, and slurred speech. Yes, I had it checked out. It's a rare form of migraines. Story 148. Regularly between 3.5 and 5.5. My short-term memory is poor. I feel like I live in a different world until the sun is up, but I try to be productive. I walk the dogs in the dark, run, and engage in similar activities. It is hard to find the silver lining. It feels like I should have more time or be able to accomplish more, but I still feel like I am barely keeping up. I often feel lonely. When I crash, it is complete like a cell phone dying. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.